Now we're going to put the spider ejector assembly back in. Make sure all of your tubes are kind of toward the front because you got to tuck it in the bracket that we snapped it out of, if you remember. You see there's big tabs here where it goes in. It's not snapping in. There it goes. See how it just popped in? You just got to get it in the right spot. Now we're going to put each one in. Be careful not to hit these on anything or break the tips. You're just going to carefully place them in the hole and snap it in. Okay? Each one should be in order where they go as they come off. We're going to put these back ones in here. And we got our one last front one here. Okay. Now, I know a lot of you have noticed, and I mentioned it before, this bracket is loose. You see that? Every one of these I've done, this is not tightened down. I believe this is a design from GM. It assists in you installing the upper intake where it fits around this O-ring. And once it's sitting on there with the intake around it, this will not move. Okay? So what we need to do next is change that O-ring. Because you don't want to have an intake leak. So we're going to pull this old one off. And put a brand new one on. And the reason we're doing this is the customer purchased a used spider unit because they're about $156 new, and you got this one for about $75. Okay, now we have our intake unit. We have to put another gasket on that, which is this guy here. And everything is shaped. We're just after we already wiped all this off, but you're going to just push it into the groove. Make sure it's all seated in there. This is very important to replace this when you do the injector assembly. Get an upper plenum intake gasket kit, because if you have an intake leak, you'll have a surging engine and it'll also be running lean because you're getting too much air. Now we're ready to put this back in. Remember just to pull your fuel lines out of the way a little bit. Tuck it in there. You're just going to slowly push down on it. I might have to put some lube on that gasket. We're going to put a little lubricant on here because it's being difficult. WD-40 works pretty good. there we go. And you saw what I did. You don't want to force too much because you might break something. So I couldn't get it to go on, so I came back off with it. Okay, now we're ready to put our bolts back in. Remember our 2 really long ones that go through this throttle body. Always start stuff in aluminum by hand. Don't just zip them in if you have power tools. Cross thread in aluminum, you pull the threads out.
And while he installs the rest of the bolts and tightens them down, we'll take a break and we'll be back in a minute.
Alright, we got all our bolts tight all the way around. Remember, this is plastic. You don't want to go too tight. I would go snug, plus another 1/4 to half a turn. Don't overdo it on these 10s. Now we're going to put the EVAP purge solenoid back on. It's got a little O-ring, it snaps in. Put our 2 longer bolts in. These are the only 2 that are silver. The rest are all black. Okay, so everything else is the same length all the way around, except the 2 silver ones and the 2 really long black ones that went in the front. Got 10mm on here. Okay. Now we already put the fuel lines on. There's the 2 8s. Don't overdo it on those. You just push your lines back down into the O-ring, put your bracket hold down on, and then put your 2 8s in. Okay, we're going to bring our vacuum booster hose back around. And we're going to install it on here. And remember, it snaps in 1 click. That's it. Okay. We're going to do our PCV hose. We'll pull our wire harnesses back through. We're going to tuck it under here, under the top of our valve cover, like that. And then remember, this piece has a big O-ring. You just push it down. And turn clockwise, and that retains that down. Okay. Now we're going to plug in our injector assembly. Make sure you go down straight. I've seen a lot of people push these on crooked and you bend the pins in there, and then you're going to have problems. Both tabs snap down on both sides, nice and tight. Plug in our idle air control motor, throttle position sensor. Okay, before I do these, I want to bring our throttle cable back over. Remember, this bracket sits right here. Okay. And then this one tucks under here, like this. Oh, it goes like this. So this one, remember, was a stud. That one tight real quick. And then this one will sit on here with the nut, like that. careful with these nuts because they're small. You can drop them. And then there's one that goes way down here. We're going to tighten those 3 down. Okay. Put our coil back on. Actually, first, let's not forget things. Let me plug the purge solenoid back on. Remember that clip? Just snaps on like that, nice and tight. We're going to put this bracket back up here. Put the nut on that, which is this one with a spin washer on it. Tighten it down. Okay. We're going to put our coil back in. The only reason we took this coil off was for access, because I knew I had to bring this intake out this way to get away from the fuel lines. If you think you can sneak it out around that, you can. This doesn't have to come off. I like to get certain things out of my way to do the job. Okay, now we're going to plug all these back in. This is your spark plug coil wire. Make sure that goes on or you won't get any spark. Plug your coil in. And loop this harness back into the clip that we took off, if you remember. That. That one back on. Remember, we got these that were clipped in this piece over here. Clip that in there. Oops, I might have done that backwards. That one in there. And we're going to set this one in here. Clip it up. We're going to run our wires over here to the AC into the EGR that we took off. Okay. Now we're going to hook that throttle cable back up that you saw me take off. Put it in the hole, loop the wire up through the slot, and bingo. Now, if this vehicle had cruise control, you see this nipple right here, which some of your vehicles will, you'll have another cable here going through this hole here, and it would loop around the same way and be snapped in here. So it's not a big problem if you have both cables. You would just snap that off of here, take that one out, and do the same thing. Got one more connector. 2 more connectors. Got one for your pressure sensor and one for your purge. Try to put that back in. There we go. Okay, that's about it. All you need to do is put on your air cleaner intake and fire her up. Make sure you check for leaks.
Okay, so someone doing this job themselves, how much do you think they'll save? Labor.
Labor-wise, this is a 6.5-hour job, so approximately $800.
And we'll be right back when it's all finished.
John, this is Andy. This is another production of CarRepairsMadeEasy.com. And please go to our website, CarRepairsMadeEasy.com, and you can see videos and forums and helpful hints and tips.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Cars Repaired Made Easy. Also like us on Facebook and share it with your friends. Thank you.
Thanks.